Welcome to the fastest daf in town, Tanil Masechtas Gittin daf Yod Ches. We are going to begin on Yod Ches and Aleph, 6 lines from the top. So we were learning regarding a get mukdam, also with regard to a get, a shtar in general, that it has to be written and signed on the same day. And we said the reason for it is twofold. First of all, there's the potential issue of peros, namely, if there is no zman, if there's no time on a get, then maybe this man will end up selling fruits afterwards, and then he'll claim that he really had rights to sell the fruits because he divorced his wife later. So therefore, the time is going to be specific that he is not able to sell these peros, these nechsim alog. Alternatively, if let's say he was married to his niece, as we said, basachaiso, so he may have rachmanas on her, and therefore, even if she was mezaneh, in which there's a punishment of chenek, he would end up saying, "Oh no!" He'd write a get quickly and say that the get was given before she committed any crime. So we were discussing what happens in a situation where a person wrote a get and it came from Medina Siyam and it was written in Nisan, but it actually didn't get here until Tishrei. So in this situation, we said that kol islahu, since it was given much after it was written, the Beis Din certainly there would require proof for the zman, the scene of the time that it was given. So Inmar, Miyamasai Moinin will get. What does that mean? How long do we hold it back regarding a get? So Rashi says, Gimel Chadashim Sheisha Sricha Hamten. The din is that after a woman gets divorced, she's supposed to wait 3 months before she gets remarried. And the reason is for a practical issue, that what happens is she was pregnant. Now, it's possible she could have an early term pregnancy, and therefore, if she gets married, let's say within just, a month after she gets divorced, there's the potential that we're not going to know who the father is. So that is the typical situation. But the question is, what is considered to be the date where we start counting those 3 months? So Rabbi Amir Mishas Nesina, from the time that it was actually given to her. So even if, let's say, it was written before, doesn't matter. It's going to go by the time she actually received the get. Shmuel Eimer Mishas Ksiva. It's totally in the time the one was written. So Maskav Rav Nasan Bar Hoyishil Shmuel. So you ask a question to Shmuel. Shmuel, you say it's the time that it was written, even if let's say it was given to her much later. So Yomer Shtei Nashim B'Chatzer Achaz Zu Asur V'Zu Muteris. So you're going to have a case of 2 women in the same chatzer. One's going to be Asur, one's going to be Mutter. What does that mean? Says Rashi, Shel Adam Echad, one person Shapirish Liyam. So he went to another country. He went across the seas. And he gave 2 gittin to 2 of his wives on the same day. One of them was written a month before, and one was written, let's say, today. So Shmuel tinase l'sayf beis chadashim v'zu l'sov gimel. If they were both given on the same day, so, but you're saying it's all totally in the writing. So if one was written a month before, so then one's going to be mutter, one's going to be also, even though they received the get on the same day. So yismahu b'nei adam shiroho shnizgar shmiyamechad. Everyone's going to be very perplexed by this. How is that possible? Because we saw they both got divorced on the same day. Because we know that he traveled to another country and he divorces his 2 wives. So how is it shak to say that we would go b'shas ksiva? So it's totally on the zman on the get. In other words, the fact that it's going to be written on the get at the time it was written, the date. So then, according to him, that will be why it's clear. So even though people say, "Hey, it doesn't make any sense. I thought you both got divorced on the same day." True, but the gittin were written differently, and you can actually look at the documents themselves, which have different dates, and therefore it's going to be totally on those dates. Tanik Vasted Rav, Tanik Vasted Shmuel. Tanik Vasted Rav, that we say it's only from the time she actually receives the get. Hasholech get leishto, where a person sends a get to his wife, v'nishtahe shliach b'derech gimel chadashim, and he waits for 3 months on the road. Kishagia get liyada, that even though it's already been 3 months, it was written 3 months ago, and now it gets into her hands. Tzricha hamtin gimel chadashim. She has to wait another 3 months, which is clearly like the Shita of Rav, who says that we go basim shas nesina. It doesn't make any difference that the gittin were already written 3 months ago. and also get yashan in chayshishin. We're not concerned of a get yashan. What does that mean? Says Rashi. We're going to see later on Daf Ayin Tes that in adam megarish beget yashan. You're not allowed to divorce a woman with an old get. What does that mean? It has an expiration date. Ve'ezu get yashan. Kol shnis yachid ima mi'achar shekasula. If, let's say, you already wrote the get, you didn't give it to her, but let's say you secluded yourself with your wife after the get was already written. As we'll see again in the Gemara, there's a concern that maybe he actually had bia, and she got pregnant. And then the question is, what's the status of this child? Were they married at the time? Or if we look at the get's signature, or the time was written rather, the date was before, so it sounds like they weren't married. So Shematis Aber, she'll get pregnant. V'telid Bain Ksivasal and Siyasai. Now let's say she gets pregnant, she gives birth between the writing and the giving. Liachazman, afterwards Yomer Haget Kadam. People will say that the get came first. It was Nus Nis Abra, and all of a sudden she was pregnant. It was a form of Znus. So we're not chayshish of that situation. That you wrote the get, and then between the ksiva and the sina, it looks like they probably had tashmish, and which could be the case. But the problem is that if we go buster, in the sina, so according to Rav, maybe you should be concerned that it's going to look, there's going to be an issue of a get yashan, the difference between ksiv and the sina. So we're not concerned of that. Shahari lonis yachadi ima, because he didn't actually seclude himself with her. So there's no reason to even suspect. Tani goes to the Shmuel. The Shmuel says that it's all totally in counting the 3 months from the time that it was actually written, shas ksiva. He says, hamashlish get leishto. If you give to a third party for your wife, says Rashi, Masar get l'shlish. You give the get to a third party kedei l'garshabo, l'sov gimel chadashim v'hu hal chadark. Avi amelo al titnenu lo el achar gimel chadashim. Wait 3 months. So mishenasnula, from the time that he gives it 3 months later, materis l'nasim yad. She can get married right away, because that's like what Shmuel holds. Shmuel says it's mishas nesina. So since rather mishas ksiva, so it was written 3 months ago. Even though he just gave it to her today, we don't care about the time it was given. We care about the time it was written. So therefore, why is that? That we go bust to the ksiva, because we don't want to go bust in the sina. Because if that would be the case, it'll get yashan ein chayshishin. He says also we're not chayshish of get yashan. Okay. So again, we see whether or not you have to wait 3 months if the get was written 3 months ago and given to her today. Rav Kahana, Rav Papi, Rav Ashi, Avdi Mishas Ksiva. So they held the time that the get was written. Rav Papa, Rav Huda, Rav Yeshua, Avdi Mishas Nasina, V'Hilchas Mishas Ksiva. The halacha is that we go buster the ksiva. Therefore, if the get was written and then only given for whatever reason 3 months later, the din is that she can get married right away. Itmar. Me'amasai ksuva mishametes. Now, there's a concept of shmita. On the 7th year, we don't work our lands, shmitas karka. There's also shmitas ksafim, that if you owe money to someone, so the din is that the shmita, the 7th year, cancels those loans. Now, that does not typically apply when we're dealing with a ksuba. And the reason is twofold. First of all, the notion is that if it hasn't been collected at all, so therefore you still have this obligation to pay the entire ksuba. And in addition to that, the din is, because none of it was collected, but in addition to that, it's considered to be a maisa bastin. So like the din of a prusbul, that was masakin. So the only loans that get canceled are loans that are private loans, individual loans. But they're tied to bastin so that it doesn't get canceled. So a ksuba doesn't get canceled. So why does it say miyamasa ksuba shemetas? Because it could, under the certain circumstances. Rabbi Omer mishetif goim, vitis goif. When you'd have both of these processes. Says Rashi, how does it like a regular star chayiv? So mishetif goyim, shetifr ksas. So the ksuva, let's say, is $100, and she already collected $50 of it. The goli daita, it's clear yoimedis ligais lepara, that it's already standing to be collected. So therefore, since the process of it being partially collected, so therefore the din is it now can be canceled. V'tiksoif olav hamaiser b'milva, and what she did was she converted the ksuba to a chayiv, like a regular loan. The nafkala mishum ksuva, it's not no longer considered like a ksuba. Rather, it's just like a regular chayiv. Umasa based in shin mishamet v'chol lehashem shtar chayiv. It no longer has the din of a maisa based in, because a maisa based in is the shmita is not mishamet alone. So how is it mishamet? Because she made it no longer a ksuba, but rather it's considered to be a regular bal chayiv. You owe me money. So therefore, that then it would be put. It would end up being mishamet. So, but you have to have both. She collected, and the rest of the loan became like a regular chov. Shmuel oimer pagma fal pi shloi zakva pi shloi pagma. So according to the Shita Shmuel, it's either one. Either she collected some of it, or she converted the ksuba into a private loan. Tani Gavasa the Rav, Tani Gavasa the Shmuel. So Tani Gavasa the Rav, that holds you need to have both aspects. Memasik Suban Shamates. So he says Mishatifka and Vatiskoif. You have to have both. You have to be poigim, which means that you already did part. You already got paid back part of the loan of the ksuba, and you converted it to a chayiv. Pagma v'lo zakva zakva pagma in Shamates. It's not going to work. Hachatifka and Vatiskoif. Again, until you have to do both. So how comes to Shmuel that says you only have to do one or the other. Oinus, when you're dealing with a situation, oinus, says Rashi, one who's oinus as a basula, chayiv chamishim kasef. So it says that you're chayiv to pay 50 kasef if a person violates a basula. Pitoi, which is similar to ukanas rather, which is referring to moitzi shemra. Upitoi, usually oinus mafata, so which is a person who also acted inappropriately with a woman, but through persuasion. Uksuvas isha. The key over here is the next words. Uksuvas isha. Shezakvan b'milva. That if it became like a private loan, mishamten, it becomes shmita. V'imlav in mishamten. So what do we see? We clearly see, like the shita of Shmuel, that even if you do one without the other, so nonetheless, again, even though you didn't collect anything, so it's still we said that the shmita will end up canceling that loan. Okay, me'masai niskofim b'milva. So when do we say that this loan is considered like a chayiv? Mishas ha'amad b'din. It's from the time that you wished to collect. So again, even though you didn't even collect anything yet. So again, that's like Shmuel, that even if you didn't collect. Okay, Omer Shmuel. Ksuva kamaisa basin damya. When it comes to ksuva, it has the same din as a maisa basin. Ma masa basin nechtabim b'yoyim v'nechtabim b'layla. Just like maisa basin, it's written during the day and it can be signed the next night. Av ksuva nechteves b'yoyim v'nechteves b'layla. So too, which sounds like it should be a problem because it sounds like a shtar mukdam, but nonetheless he says it could be written during the day and then signed at night. Says Rashi, Hilkach ein sham hakdama. It's not an issue of hakdama. Av ksuba mishas. Fine. So ksuba say the Reb Chia bar Rav ichta b'yom v'ichta b'layla havoy. Over there it was written during the day and signed at night. Rav Hassam v'lo yamru l'amidi. So Rav was there and he didn't say anything. So it must be that it's allowed. So Lamek Shmuel Svirle. It must be that he holds like the sheet of Shmuel. Let's look at Rashi. So Rashi says, again, this is like the sheet of Shmuel. Shmuel's the one who just said the statement that it's shaykh that you can write a get during the day and have it signed at night on a separate day. And it's not a problem. Says Rashi, Av Ksuba Meshas Ksiva. the nichnasa l'chuppah, the keruv chasnusu chayil sheibud v'avalav deloy echtum, even though it wasn't signed. So we see like the din of Shmuel that as long, even if it was written on one day and signed on another. So my answer is asukin ba'oisa inyan havoy. This is different from ksiva and chasima. From the time it was written to the sign, even though it's true that the signature didn't take place until the next day, but because they're asukin ba'oisa inyan, since they were busy, engaged in the process, even though it leaked into the next day, it didn't become a problem. The sign Yomi Rabbi Lezer bar Reb Tzadok lo shana el b'shein asukin ba'oisa inyan. The only time we have an issue is dafka if they're not involved in the discussion. Aval asukin ba'oisa inyan kosher, but asukin ba'oisa inyan, then it is kosher. So therefore, we say that because even at the time of the ksiva, the writing, there's also koil. Says question 9. Le'inyan ma omer Shmuel ksiva kamasa based in damya ve'ez oifen hu adin b'chol hashtaros. So he says regarding writing during the day and signing at night is kosher. And when it comes to all shtaros, if you're asukin ba'oisa inyan, even though we said it's a shtar muktam, because the difference between a ksuba and other documents is a shtar is monetary issues, and therefore the problem is there could be a lien on property that really shouldn't be a lien on, vice versa. But again, there's no monetary property. There's no money that's exchanged based on the giving of a get. So therefore, a shtar muktam is less problematic when it comes to a get. So we said like this: when it comes to a get, even if it was written during the day and signed the next night, according to him, it's okay. But not when it comes to shtar shtaros, unless you're asukin ba'oisa inyan. If you're asukin ba'oisa inyan, then it is okay. All right, so let's look at question TA 16. Be'ez oifen shtara shenichtavu shenichtavu, it says it twice, b'yoyim nimser b'layl ksherim. So the answer is, but asukin ba'oisa inyan. If you're asukin ba'oisa inyan, that is okay. That was TA 16. Okay. Weiter. So Rav Shimon Machsher. So what's this going on? So we said that when it comes to the din of a shtar mukdim, so according to the sheet of Rav Shimon is lenient. Okay, so we look at this Mishnah on Yud Ches Amud Aleph. So he says that again, if it was written when it comes to a get, it was written during the day and signed that night, it's possible. Rav Shimon Machsher, Shimon doesn't have an issue of a shtar muktam, as he says. Rav Shimon Omer kol gin shekasu b'yom dachim b'layim psulan. Regular documents they're possible, except maybe if it's asukin ba'oisa inyan, excluding Gittin Nashim. According to Gittin Nashim, even if it's muktam, it's not a problem. Okay, so that's what we're going to be discussing. Rav Shimon Machsher. So Rabbi, my time Rav Shimon. Why does Rav Shimon say that you can write a get during the day and then sign it at night? Aren't there those problems of peros and also basocheso? So what's the reason Rav Shimon? Because he holds that once you cast your eyes to divorce your wife, there's no din peros. In other words, even b'shas ksiva, from the time that you write the get, already you can no longer have any access to her fruits. So we don't care, even if it was written and signed on different days. The reality is, from the moment of it being written, you can't have access to those peros anyway. So therefore, we're not concerned of peros. And maybe when it comes to the other inyan, we when it comes to znus by Baal Sachoiso, we say znus lo shchiach. Al Meresh Lakish lo hechsher Rav Shimon el alter. Actually, let's look at question 8 right off the gate. Baal Megarish Hamegarish Ishto and Masay Oichel Perosa V'Nechsim Beluk. So we actually had this. So again, Rav Shimon said Mishanasav Ein Lagarsha, which is Mishas Ksiv, the time it's written. According to Rabbi Yochanan, says that Shas Nesina, time was given. or maybe on Shas Chasimas a get. So you can, no matter what, you're going to get it right. Either the time of the writing, the time of the signing, or the time of the giving. Okay. So, Lo Esh Rav Shimon, the only time Rav Shimon says it's kosher when regarding a get, even though it's not written and signed on the same day, is El Alter. In other words, it happened the next day. You wrote the get today and you signed it at night. Okay, fine. So they're only a day apart. It's pretty close. So that's when he'll be lenient. If we're dealing with a massive amount of time, let's call it 10 days between the writing and the signing as we continue the Chesed days, no. That's too far apart. Well, what's the difference? If you don't have an issue with with a get mukdam, so your answer is Chayshin and Shema Fies. Because what happens if you appeased your wife? So what does that mean? But get yoshin. Maybe there's an issue of get yoshin, because we said that you can't write a get, and then between writing and giving the get, you end up being miyachid with your wife, and maybe even having tash with her, and maybe even getting her pregnant and having a child. Now all of a sudden, this child becomes problematic. We don't know, was this child before or after they got divorced? So if you wait a long time, we're concerned of this issue. Even if it was signed 10 days later, if it would be true that this husband would have appeased his wife, people would have known about it. Who would know about it? Very interesting Rashi. Rashi says, all your neighbors, your male neighbors, your female neighbors, shaymin, they're constantly hearing tigra katata. Unfortunately, here is screaming and fighting and yelling. Margishim. All of a sudden, it's silent. Oh, what happened? Why is everyone quiet all of a sudden? It must be that they appease one another. So, in the event that the get was written and signed 10 days later, we're not concerned that maybe he was miyachid, because we keep hearing them screaming at each other. Obviously, they didn't get back together. They hate each other. So therefore, if it would have been quiet, then the neighbors would have been able to attest to that effect. Itmar. Omer Lasara, if you say to 10 people, Kisru Gel Ishti, write a get to my wife. That's all you did. We didn't say Kulchem, you just said write a get. You said it in front of 10 people. Rabbi Yochanan, Shnayim Mishum Edim. So 2 of them will be witnesses, V'kulam Mishum Tanai. And everyone else will be a Tanai, will be on like a conditionary, says Rashi. So what does that mean? So 2 of them is Schavin Lachtum Bo L'Shem Edim. Out of the 10, 2 of them you wanted just as normally, 2 people to sign the get. Everyone else, says Rashi, Hichtim boy Ella L'Vaisha Barabim. The only reason why you have all these people is to embarrass her. Tanai Gomer Hitel Beget Zeh, and you made a Tanai, Shlol Havigita El Imkein Chaisman Bo Kulon. All these people have to sign the get. Okay, but they're not like Adim, but it's because of Tanai to humiliate her. No, they're all considered to be like witnesses. His intention was for all of them to sign it as witnesses. So if he didn't say the word kulchem, all of you, write again for my wife, 1 writes and 2 signs. It has to be that he said kulchem. So that's the din. If you say kulchem to 10 people, so all of them sign, but is it that 2 of them are witnesses and the rest are considered just like Tanai? Or are all 10 like witnesses? So what's the difference? In either situation, they all have to sign it anyway. So what difference what their job title is? So 2 of them signed it during the day. In other words, it was written today and then signed right away. And then the other 8 guys signed it only 10 days later. So mandir mishum tanai kosher. If those 8 people, they're not really Adim, so it's not a problem. The chasima took place, and these people are just tag-alongs. Mandir mishum Adim possible, because you need to have the chasimos of all the Adim at the same day that it was written. And if that didn't take place, then it's possible, because it's considered to be a get mukdam. Inami, a second nafkamin is let's say one of them is a relative. One of them is not allowed to be a witness. So Laman the Yomer Mishum Tanai kosher, because they're not witnesses. Laman the Yomer Mishum Eidim Pasul. And the one who says that Alt Eidin, so that's Pasul, because you can't have a Karov or a Pasul the whole thing. Now, Ichasum Batchil Karov Pasul, if let's say the first two people, and the whole question is the two signatures are definitely Eidim. The ones afterwards is questionable. So let's say the first two signatures was a Karov Pasul, so Amruli kosher v'amrula pasul. Interestingly enough, someone will actually say it's kosher. So Amrula kosher tenaihu. They'll end up saying, yeah, the person who signed it, who's a karov, was really not one of the witnesses. Amrula pasul also b'shtaras de alma. However, some say that it will be pasul because it may get confused with other stars. Says Rashi, kivan dechasa bereisha. Since this karov or pasul signed it first, he probably signed it for sure as a witness. The Akshu Karv B'chol Shtaros, we're going to start allowing Kroivim to start signing Shtaros, which is obviously problematic. Question 10. Amrul Asar Kulchem Kisvugeli Ishti V'chosim Karv Rishain Mahatam Demand the Pasul. So the reason why it's Pasul is because since he signed it as one of the two, it must be that he is he is one of the Edom, and therefore it's going to be possible. Says right. So it says like this: So according to Rish Lakish, it doesn't matter if you signed first, second, or 10th. It's always going to be possible because you're a karov. However, according to Rabbi Yochanan, it says that the last 8 are Tanai. So maybe it's not the last 8 people who signed. Maybe the fact that he is a karov, so maybe he is actually the 8 who are considered Tanai. But the problem is, so why did he sign first? If he signed one of the first two first, number 1 or number 2, that gives the appearance that he was doing it als edus, and therefore apostle. Person said to 10 people, Kisu get lishti, write this get for my wife. And Rashi says, Hahudi Amar Lasar Kulchem Kisu get lishti. Gemara doesn't say that, but it has to be a case of Kulchem. So Chosum Beitrei, Minahi B'yomi. So 2 people signed it during the day. And then the other 8 signed it later, another day. So again, this is the whole machlokis. Are those other 8 people Tanai, and therefore it's kosher, or the 8 and it's possible? So also come into Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi to ask this question. They posed it to Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. So as we continue to Testament Aleph, this is what he said. Kedai hu Rav Shimon ismachol b'shas al-chak. It's fitting to hold like Rav Shimon in the time of necessity. Says Rashi, Demasnisin, our Mishnah, the Aimer Nichna B'Yom Nechna kosher, that says that even if it was not written and signed on the same day, we could hold like Rav Shimon. B'shas Chak, says Rashi, Shaholach Zel Darko Onisis Kvar Begetzeh. Let's say, for example, we relied on this get, so she got remarried, or he's gone. So in this situation, we can be lenient and hold like the Shita Rav Shimon and say it's not an issue anyway if we're dealing with a get mukdam, and therefore even if it was these other 8 people signed it later, b'shas al-chak, we can paskin like Rav Shimon. Rav Shimon only said it's good, el alter, only if you did it right away. So I don't understand. Even Rav Shimon holds that this wouldn't work. So Bahik Rav Yochanan serially, according like this, he holds like Rav Yochanan, as we said before. The machlokas Reish Lakish and Rav Yochanan regarding to Kulchem, Rav Yochanan says Shnayim mishum Eidim v'Kul mishum Tanai. So therefore, you could end up again if it's mishum 8 of them are Tanai, so then it's okay because as long as the other first 2 people signed it. The Amar Rav Yochanan Shnayim mishum Eidim v'Kul mishum Tanai Pahi Reish Lakish Svirale. So again, we're kind of like dancing around in order to be able to be makel, to be able to say that this is in fact acceptable, even though it's a shtar mukdam, even though it was written 10 days later, it's still a possible way of getting around in it being a heter. Okay, we're going to stop there. Let's see maybe another question. Question 17, TB 17. Elu Beis Dinim Amru b'ksuva shechaluka mishar shtaros. How do we make a difference between a ksuva and other staros? Kivan sheksuva kamasa based on he. So he said, Im kosvu v'lo nosnu b'yoyim echad. If you wrote it and didn't sign on the same day, ela echad b'yom echad b'layla. That's good when according to one shita, when it comes to Gittin. Or im asuk. This is not. I'm not sure this is correct. Im asukin b'oiso inyan oz anachnu makilim. We're makel in that situation by other. We're lenient over there when it comes to other staros, even shar staros. This is talking about where do we find the ksuva shecholkum shar staros. So perhaps, I'm not sure if that's what they're looking for. It potentially could be regarding ksuva, whether it's mishametas, that a ksuba is generally not going to be mishamet as opposed to other or this is a getter ksuba. Yeah. Beis dinim omer b'ksuba shechalukim mishar shtaros. So when it comes to shar shtaros, because it's a choiv, so therefore it's going to be mishamet. When it comes to ksuba, it's not going to be mishamet. So that's probably another way of what they're looking for. Adkan.